Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert, Ian Barnard, American retro design expert, Dustin Lee, and the incredibly talented South African illustrator, Lisa Glanz. Today, we're talking to our younger selves and giving those lovable little scamps some life advice. So without further ado, let's get into the show. We're back, guys. Oh, look at that. We're kicking off with some serious giggles from Lisa. It's going to be one of those episodes.
You all missed what Dustin just did.
Oh, no, I didn't miss it. For anyone who's a long-time listener, all of these rogues, especially Dustin, try and put me off while I'm reading the intro because they're unprofessional. And this is pretty relevant, actually, because today's episode is all about what we would say to our younger selves. I guess in a design sense, not just like me shaking, 11-year-old Tom and be like, what the hell's that haircut? Exactly. Get her to put the bowl down. It's not a strong look for you.
That could be linked in with personal branding.
This is true.
Yeah, I feel like there's a gap in the market for a good old-fashioned bowl cut. I'm thinking like Jim Carrey, Dumb and Dumber, that whole look.
Thing is, you could go, if you went for that, you'd have to go for the whole look. You couldn't just like wearing a nice suit with a bowl haircut. You'd have to have
Yeah, you have to fully commit. You can't be lukewarm on the bowl. We've got the lovely Lisa Glanz back this week as well.
Yay.
We're sorry to miss her. She was here last week, in spirit anyway, but South Africa had your 18th power cut of the last 15 minutes or whatever it was.
Pretty much, yeah.
Are we expecting one tonight?
No.
Good.
Don't
At
jinx
any
it.
moment, she could drop out. If that happens, we know why.
She actually wanted a night off and like, I'm going to power.
I never thought of that. Could do that.
Yeah, it's
next time.
convenient, isn't it?
Oh no, I've put a little thought in her head now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess if we are hopping in the collective hot tub time machine and soaping each other up here. Sorry, that got weird. What would we? We're jumping back in time a few years. Some of us more than others. Hey, Dustin. What would we say to our younger selves?
Oh, come on, guys.
What advice are we giving?
I know that you're going to have a lot of stuff to say, Ian. I've got a sense.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, the thing is, if he was really young, then I probably wouldn't say learn calligraphy because, for me, I think it was a good time to do then because I would have got, I put it on there because of my practice. And so I wouldn't have got the sort of link in with social media that I would have had. Do you understand what I mean? So, like,
I know exactly what you mean. But imagine if, like, the day Instagram came out, you jumped on it and were the first letter on Instagram, and you were already highly skilled by that point.
Oh,
Boom! You'd be at like 5,000 people.
totally.
Yeah, I suppose, like. Being before Seb Lester, who's got like 1 million followers, I suppose you could. So you'd have to tell your younger self all about the how to work on Instagram, I suppose.
But that's quite specific. In other words, like, how would you then generalize that comment? Like, would you say be more curious or try new things more, or because we can always, in hindsight, we can all go like, hey man, I should have like done that long time ago or whatever. I just think that if I'm thinking back to myself, is that often I used to make excuses for not trying something, and I think only as I'm older, I'm starting to only as when I'm older, I'm starting to kind of realize, you need to know the difference between fear and your gut telling you that's a bad idea. So that's quite a big thing. Like, should you be following this because it's actually not the right thing for you, or are you actually avoiding it because you're scared to try it?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to have to keep it quite holistic today. This is going to be general advice.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be like, is the winner of the Grand National in 1993, and you are going to clean up my son. Like, and I think if most people had that time machine, they'd be doing something like that. It would be the lottery numbers. I love how geeky we are. We're like, this lettering niche is about to blow wide open, my friend, on Instagram. That's where our minds go. But
all the money on Google, baby. Invest in Google.
Yeah. The problem is, you go back and you could do that, say anything, lottery numbers, Grand National, whatever. But you still need to have like a workful purpose, don't you? Because otherwise you are going to, you have a load of money and nothing to do.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
That sounds
you still need a passion. You still need something
There's lots of people who got billions of dollars now are really unhappy. So, you'd have to do like, I suppose part of it would be focusing, not giving the whole picture to my younger self, but saying maybe steering myself into a certain way. Because you have to go, I think it was a quote the other day, you have to go through the fire to really learn certain things.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say do this. I would say try this area. Maybe give myself say do more, trying things from an early age. Try lots of different crafts and try lots of different.
Just to add some, palpable drama and reality. Can you say this as if you were saying it to your younger self? And can you start off by either saying young man or in Lisa's case, young lady?
Well, firstly, I don't think we'd be calling ourselves young lady or young man.
Oi, you little
young man.
What would you say? And again, keeping it holistic here, what would your first bit of advice be if you sat down? And actually, how old are you at this point?
Ian?
Me?
Sorry, are you asking Ian, or are you asking?
No, I'm asking Ian. Yeah, how old
I would
is your
probably
younger
be between 16 and 18.
Okay, so what are you saying to 17-year-old Ian?
I would be saying don't go off and do graphic design and illustration because it was a waste of time.
That's too specific. How would you know?
Okay, well,
I would say do the course between 16 and 18. I was doing a course in multimedia, which was really good actually because it gave me an eye for everything. I got to do photography, I got to do video, I got to do light and sound, got to do radio, I got to do graphic design, technical drawing, all these different things over a 2-year period, which was really good. And I wouldn't stop myself from doing that. The 2 years after that, where I did graphic design and illustration, I feel was probably a bit of a wasted time. If it had been maybe run differently, it probably would have been all right. But my friend taught me more about design in 5 minutes than I learned in 2 years. So I think I tell myself to maybe do a different course or get a job. I think get a job early. I suppose.
So know when to quit or know when to leave something that isn't working, because that's what I would tell myself. Because I learned that way too late in the game.
What, you were just clinging on? What were you holding on to?
Well,
your jewelry business.
No, I mean I was even thinking like my jobs that I stayed too long at.
Yeah.
Because you're scared. You're scared to leave because the alternative is, it's unknown. So you hang on and hang on and hang on, and you need to know when to quit. And the same applies for certain pursuits, whether it's creative or even personal or whatever. You need to know when, like, okay, this isn't working out. You're wasting your time. You're barking up the wrong tree. You got to move on. And it's kind of
advice.
Yeah, it's disappointing sometimes. Like for example, when my first experience in illustrating children's book, I was obviously extremely new to the game. I had no clue. I didn't have a style. I didn't know how to draw really, all that kind of stuff. But it was a dream come true. And I literally did the project didn't enjoy it. It didn't go well. I knew the end result didn't look all that great. And I knew I had to actually leave that. I had to kind of move on and not pursue that because I wasn't ready for it. So I think it's important to know when to
pivoting.
Quit.
Yeah, pivoting and quitting, being okay.
And it's okay to change your mind, It's okay.
I started smirking there because Dustin popped up for a second, and I just thought, I bet your advice would be to give up on that project where you got paid $1,500 for like 2 years or whatever it was.
Know when to quit, Dustin.
Yeah, like one day into that, be like, get out, my man.
Or just add a couple of noughts on the end.
Yeah. One of mine would be know your value more.
Yes.
Because it's only really been since we started doing this podcast, and we've had much more experience in recent years, and I feel like every year that goes by, the level of learning and experience I accrue is kind of accelerating as well, because I'm just trying to be a sponge roll. So I feel so much more well versed and experienced now compared to even when at the tail end of my freelance career things were going pretty well. And I think about this quite a lot. If I could just go back and like implant all of my knowledge now, I genuinely think I could be earning like 5 to 10 times what I was back then when I was really happy with how it was going.
Yeah, I've thought that before too.
Yeah, like not doing anything too drastically different, but just repositioning it and fighting for my own value and getting the clients to understand that and so on. Value-based pricing or things of that nature. Because I was really underpricing myself. I mean, I would charge what I thought was quite a huge sum of money. And I've told you guys how I used to work is I'd do a redesign on a solopreneur's website, and overnight they would get like 50% more revenue every single month after that. And some of these people were making like 10 to 20 grand a month. So when you add 50% on that, I felt really good that the fee I was getting might equate to like, 2 or 3 months worth of what they were making extra. But that's like, they would have happily paid to get like 6 to 12 months worth, because it will then keep earning them that forever.
Are you willing to share how much you charged, or is that personal?
Yeah, and it's not like huge amounts by any stretch at all. So towards the tail end, it would be kind of 5,000 to 8,000 for a website, which might sound tiny, but these were websites that weren't coded. Literally, I'm talking like a PSD.
Wow.
What? So you just came out of the PSD for 5 to 8 grand?
Well, not a single PSD, like also subpages and so on. But yeah.
I don't think I've ever charged a job before I did lettering in that ballpark. And I did Dustin did like massive websites for about like 500 quid.
But it could have been a lot more because the impact and the value was there.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that falls under, as much as I love this phrase, I can never find examples, and I think this is one, work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing the same amount of work, but you basically are finding ways to earn more.
But I don't want the listeners, yes, that's good advice. And I believe we're going to address that in next week's episode. A little teaser for you guys. But I think about this a lot as well. Like when I was doing 100 hours a week, getting my company off the ground, that is because I didn't have as much experience that I have now.
Yeah.
So actually all you have is hard work.
Yes.
If you're more limited on experience, you have to put the work in.
So when you're not smart, you can only work hard.
Yeah, like when you haven't accrued the smarts of your business, then all you really have is hard work.
Yeah.
And so you put the hard work in, you get experience through doing that, and then you can work a little bit less hard. Or for the hyper ambitious, you do both. So you continue to work unbelievably hard, but you're now much smarter, so your results exponentially get bigger.
Yeah.
And I found that with especially with YouTube, because when you start YouTube, if you've got no experience with video production, everything is hard and you've got no knowledge in it, and it's just every video you think, oh, okay, if I do that, that's there's like little bits of smart just popping in every time you do it. Do you know what I mean? So you get better at editing and that makes you faster, but you can only do that, and I suppose putting yourself on courses as well. Actually, that's something I tell myself. Just constantly, just
Learn.
do courses, learn. Also, read a lot of books.
Yeah.
Like Dustin would probably tell himself.
Lisa, can I be incredibly demanding?
Of course you can.
Well, or Dustin, because he's kind of taking notes anyway. I haven't got a pen to hand, but I'd love to do like a summary at the end of this episode if anyone's willing to take notes. So far we've got pivot and quit quicker.
Pivot.
Pivot. We've got learn more and basically be a sponge. We've got realize your value.
Dustin, are you taking notes?
Yes, I am. Realize your value. What was before realize your value?
Pivot and quit easier.
Read.
Learn. Yeah.
Or is that part of learning?
Okay.
I would tell myself not to overuse Euro style font.
Oh man, mate! I did a full restaurant branding and menu set using Euro style.
Or I think what you meant to say was, when in doubt, use Euro style.
Yes, yeah. And there was one that was similar to Euro style, which was like a thinner version, and I just used it. I'm like, well, maybe it was like, because obviously everything I do would be like, let's try a different style. Oh, let's go back to Helvetica.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like if it all doesn't work out, I'll go back to Helvetica.
Yeah.
Or if I'm feeling a bit risky, I'll go Euro style.
You're feeling like a real maverick.
Oh,
I would have gone back and been like, Dustin, make something called field notes.
But that's a good point, because then it comes down to the execution, because so many people have tried to make stuff, and just because you make a notebook and put field notes on the front doesn't mean it's going to sell.
Yeah.
It's the brand, it's the story behind the brand.
Yeah.
That would be like saying go and stick a horse on a polo shirt and become a billionaire.
Exactly. Yeah. But
Okay,
that hard work
what else
thing
we got?
is definitely on my list, because I think we forget, like, while we're doing the hard work, we don't really see the end result. It's only years later that you can look back and go, wow, putting all that graft did pay off. So it does pay off. Definitely.
This is actually a very timely episode, and I don't think I told you guys this, but the other day I gave business mentorship to an 8-year-old kid.
Oh, I saw it on your story.
Yeah. So
yeah.
how this transpired, it was agreed back in March, but one of my best mates, he's part of our group that goes skiing every year, and he was talking about his nephew and just saying, this kid is like a prodigy. He's like an absolute kid genius, and he wants to be an entrepreneur more than anything in the world. And he was telling me all these stories where I was like, God, this kid does sound like a genius. So I was like, yeah, like, love to meet him. And he was saying, do you mind giving him some advice? So I was like, yeah, get him into the office. And it took a while to coordinate. And I think now he's on school holidays and that kind of thing. So his mum brought him in, and we made a real kind of show of it, where he came in the office and we treated him like a high value client or something. So everyone was like, oh, Thomas, like, from TPR
He must have
Tech.
loved that.
He did. Like, at the end, apparently his mum texted me. Apparently he said to his mum, that was the best day of my life, which made me so happy. And he was really cute as well. So he came in and we had like the receptionist and everyone just being like, oh, are you here for a meeting? Here's your lanyard, and like, come and shake his hand and all that kind of stuff. And we sat down and he literally reminded me of me, but he's 8 years old and he was doing stuff that I was doing when I was 12 or 13.
Wow.
And I just thought, damn, this kid is going to like absolutely kill it in life. But it was really weird because it was what we're talking about today. I had to try and give him as much advice as I could to help him shortcut all the crap which I went through. But I had to do it in a way that essentially a child, albeit a really smart one, would understand. And it was kind of challenging because I've got a habit of I try and talk to kids like they're adults. Once they're past being a baby, I'm like, I can't be asked to do the whole kiddie voice thing. It's weird. So I'm like, right, young man, we're going to, yeah, are you familiar with vanity metrics? Because we're going to jump in there and like all this kind of stuff.
That's funny.
But it did make me realize some of the stuff I said to him, I said it in ways and used analogies and metaphors that he would understand. And after I said it to him, I kind of said to him and his mum, I was like, what I've just taught him in 5 minutes, It took me 8 years to realize, and 8 years of like grueling trial and error and reading hundreds of articles and doing the wrong stuff and eventually finding business mentors. And I was like, I've just told him that in 5 minutes, and now he should be set up to just go and do it the right way from age 8.
Amazing.
And I think that's the value in like, you know, mentors and consultants and so on.
Yeah.
And that's what people pay for. But yeah, it does make you think, like, if this whole time machine thing was real, imagine how much time you could save yourself. You could fast forward decades and just be like, don't do that. That's a waste. Do that instead. Focus there.
Yeah.
Here's a shortcut. Like, it'd be so convenient.
Well, you know, the funny thing about the advice is, the other day I was talking to someone who released something, and she released a course, and she'd been trying to do it for quite a while and released it, and it made money. It was really exciting for her. But it's like when even though you hear these things, at one point even I had looked at her emails and said, you know, you need to put call to action here, and you should put call to actions through your emails, and you should, you know, create some sort of scarcity, let them know it's ending, blah, blah. And she said, oh my gosh, like I totally know that, but I've just never put it into action before. So it was like, I didn't even think of it. Even though she knew it, she didn't do it the first time. So it's weird. It's like, even though you know things, sometimes you don't do them until
absolutely
you go through the fire, and then you realize.
But what I've found when I had former business mentors and so on, I had exactly the same thing. And I hear that all the time from people now. They're like, what you're telling me, I that makes complete sense, and I kind of know it, but I wasn't doing it. And I think that's because we all know infinite stuff. Yeah. We might know hundreds of things we think are a sensible idea, but when someone comes along and says, well, actually, those 200 are not worth your time, those 100 are terrible, and actually these 5 are where the magic happens, it's just clarity. Because equally, if we went to people and gave them horrible advice and we're like, actually focus on these 5 over here, I'm sure we could equally sell them of like, oh, I always knew that, and what a great idea. Yeah, I'll go do that. But it would be the wrong advice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's also saying and it's also about reframing it, isn't it? It's like, well, not reframing, or framing it in a way that somebody can eventually goes, oh, of course, now that makes perfect sense. You know, it's like the perfect cookie recipe. You know, all the ingredients are the same, but you know, the cookie comes out different. Yeah.
And do you think as well? I'm going to give you a weird analogy here. So I don't know why. The first like womanizer that's popped in my head is Matthew McConaughey. I don't even know if he is. we'll run with that.
But at least he's good looking.
Matthew McConaughey's here. All right. and so Matthew McConaughey, if he grabbed like a 13-year-old teenage boy who's like obsessed with girls, and he went, right, you are horrendous with women right now, my friend. You're an insecure, spotty teenage mess. You don't know what you're doing. Here is all my tips for how to like get with beautiful women. And he could tell him everything he knows. That kid is probably not going to suddenly become a Lothario.
No.
Is this a little fancy fantasy of yours, Tom? Like
what, Matthew McConaughey teaching me everything? I feel like this is based on a movie or something, but I'm gonna keep going.
Okay, you do that.
Like, my point is, like, just because you tell someone the way to do stuff, I feel like often you have to go through the paying your dues, and like it happens all the time, right? How much, like, we do it on this podcast, we give literally all the advice of how to be a successful designer, but funny enough, the thousands of people that listen to this show, they're not all successful designers on the back of it.
Yeah, and even I forget my own advice sometimes. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. So some people don't take the advice, other people take it, but it takes years to actually get good at implementing it. Other people take a bit of it, but don't really put the work in. Other people might not have, you know, the same balance of talent, so it might not work for them. There's so many factors, but the same way old Matthew McConaughey's there, you know, trying to give that advice. Like, that advice itself isn't enough. I feel like you actually do need time and work, and ultimately there are no real shortcuts. No. Like, you can get a light shone on the right path, but you still have to walk down it.
Yeah, it's kind of like having kids. Before you have kids, I mean, ever since like I was a kid, and my mom would tell me, you know, like, you get all this advice, and this is hard with kids. You know, you're going to stay up all the time. They're going to do this. Or as you're growing up, you're like, oh, I'm never going to do that with my kids. I'm never going to be that I'm never going to be that person. I'm going to be cool about this thing. And then you become a parent, and all the advice and the things that you'd heard, rubber meets road. And you find yourself doing and thinking the exact advice you've been told your entire life.
Not to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're like, oh, well, that, of course, because what else would you do? You realize it once you actually do it. Yeah.
It sucks, right? You're like, damn it, I'm so human.
Oh, it does. Because I remember my mom when I was a kid, I remember my mom saying to me, you just wait until you have kids. Like she's definitely said it in a way like, wait until you see. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like you just need to figure this out. And then I did it. And I was like, oh, dang, she was right about that. Son of a. But I have three things that I would tell myself here. Tell me what you guys think of these. One was money and labor are not correlated, which is, I remember making way more money when I started to do certain things in my business. And I was like, well, I'm not working any harder, but I'm making more money. The other one was get a mentor, because the mentor taught me way more than any school or anything did. And then the final one was, you're just as smart as everyone else doing this. Those are the three things that held me back.
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that very much.
And
They kind of like, sorry, Ian, go.
Sorry, I just think with that you're smarter as everyone else. I think it's that for me, it's not been like taking my intelligence and other. It's just little pieces of like nuggets of information that I've got, that I've picked up on the way, and they've been really tiny, but they've been transformative to whether to my profession or my business and stuff like that. The way I do things, and it's because I don't feel myself as particularly intelligent, not particularly good at quizzes, like pub quizzes we have in this country. General knowledge isn't that great. My dad helped me a lot to get through my exams at school. But I think it's just knowing little pieces here and there as you pick them up throughout you.
I think Warren Buffett, I heard him say the other day, he was talking about things. I think he was actually talking about advice he would give to his younger self. And he said, if your IQ is any higher than 120, you might as well just give the rest of it away because it's useless. He said a good healthy dose of common sense is much more useful than anything above 120 in your IQ.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, because that what you were saying, Dustin, kind of ties into one of the things I would tell myself is, there's room for us all. Like we think, well, someone's already doing that, or that person's already got that idea, or, whatever. They're already designing in that particular style, or they chose that particular, it just hasn't been done by you. So don't let that stop you, just because there are other people doing the same thing. I think that a lot of us have that fear that we're just not going to match up to the rest of them.
Oh, for sure.
And that's not true. Yeah.
I've noticed in the passive income for designers course, so many people, I'll talk about what's a roadblock, what's stopping you. Well, this idea seemed good, but it's just so saturated. Everyone's doing this. And I feel like, no, like that's a sign that you're onto something. If nobody's doing it, you should run the other way. If like there's other people doing it, that's a good sign. You have to find your own path for it. But
Dustin, I'm kind of have this guide on how to create really popular digital products, and the formula which I've kind of gone with is talent and quality of the product, the level of market demand, and the uniqueness of the product. And I actually use you as a perfect example of someone not needing all three, because you make tons of products where there's a bunch of other stuff that is in that same vein. Mm-hmm. For example, like halftone brushes and stuff like that. You're not the first guy to make halftone brushes or ink brushes or whatever it might be. Most of it's been validated by someone else and done by someone else. But the quality is incredible. The market demand, like I just said, is there. And it's just like beautifully packaged up and branded and put together and like as good as it can be.
Oh, yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be like a complete thunderbolt moment of uniqueness. It can just be a really well put together thing.
But what makes it unique is the fact that Dustin, as you just said, packages it in a way, and it is his presentation, and of course his attention to detail and quality. So that in itself cannot be replicated by somebody else because that came from Dustin. So
Yeah.
It's like the Apple design of retro stuff. Where you're like, well, I don't need it, but I really desire the new iPhone.
And surveys have told me that's what tons of people think. But, oh, God. Yeah, I remember when I was starting, and sometimes I don't think this anymore, but when I was starting, I'd see in forums, if you go into any forums for anything related to design, you'll see people giving away free brushes, free textures. A lot of it's not good. Some of it's really good. And I just thought, I can't believe people are giving this away for free. And I think a lot of people think, well, if someone's giving something away for free, no one wants it. But some people deeply want to pay for something. I want to buy stuff. I'd rather just buy it and I feel like once I buy something, you're on the hook. So if I bought it from you, it better be good.
Yeah.
Whereas if I just download it off a forum, then I'm like, well, you're just going to be like, well, whatever.
It's true.
So I got 4 things that I would tell my younger self here. So I'm going to fire through these. One is, and this is going to sound cheesy, but follow your heart. And what I mean by that is I spent a lot of years listening to other people's advice and doing things the way I kind of read they were meant to be done. And this was, with how I marketed my creative business and did blogging and content and all this kind of stuff. I think I've told you guys, like I literally Googled how to do internet marketing. And so I had to then go and learn all this sleazy stuff and start chasing stuff that I didn't really believe in, but I just thought, well, that's the way everyone does it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I found good business mentors who started saying, actually, this, and this is the really right way to do it. And then I'm nodding along going, well, that's the way I wanted to do it from the start. I want to build community. I want to just be really nice to people. Or like, I want to do all this fun stuff. I just thought I couldn't. And so I think whatever your thing is, however you love to operate, like deep down in your heart, and I'm not saying you need like total expertise around that, but like the fundamentals of how you like to do things and what you believe in, I just think go after that and don't let that be clouded out by third-party advice.
Yeah.
So that would be one. The other one, and this is kind of related, but is like lean into your true self with confidence. And again, what I mean by that is think of like Dina Rodriguez when we had her on. That was all about like how to embrace your true character. And I think that kind of comes with age in life, not just in creativity or business or anything, but, it absolutely maps to finding a creative style, confidently putting yourself out there in your content, branding yourself with confidence. I just think not trying to blend in. Don't do that thing people do at school where it's like, I almost want to be invisible because I don't want to stand out like a sore thumb in a bad way. And in the real world, the opposite is true. It's a really good idea to actually try and stand out by really owning your unique self because no one's like you. So like fully embracing that instead of being lukewarm on it would be the second thing. Third thing is network. Took me a while to realize that actually just who you know in your industry is the whole game. Like all of our best partnerships and doors that have opened have come from essentially making friends with people. Like look at this podcast. I consider all 3 of you guys friends. And that's the best way to operate. Like we're working on a top secret project now, or we're about to start planning it. And that just comes from us hanging out and enjoying each other's company. There's no like cold calling or awkward meetings with strangers or going through the phone book or any of that. We just have built out a network of people that we like and respect and get along with. And so networking is kind of a dirty word still, but that's it. It's just try and make friends with everyone in your industry. Relationships. That's a better way. Yeah, relationships.
Yeah.
And then point number 4 is start a personal brand. So I just think that is a great idea for everyone. I think it opens so many doors. And whilst mine is starting to get some real traction right now, which is exciting, my God, if I'd started that 10 years ago, I'd be in such a different position right now.
Yeah.
And I think we all would. And I think having that asset, no matter what you're working on, like having that thing that you own, and that does open so many doors for relationships and other stuff. So that would be my 4.
Nice.
I've got a couple.
Go on. Take it
actually,
away.
no, I won't, because one of them was what you would self-awareness, which is knowing yourself, knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. Not being narrow-minded, because I was like
bigoted.
No.
Those awkward teenage years.
Yeah. The fact that it was just graphic designer and that was it. It was just someone working on a computer just doing. Like I had this impression of graphic design was just this way. But if I'd speak to myself and say, look, actually, think about where places need design. So, like, I was really, my eyes were open with the sort of a talk I heard from the people who did all the graphic design for Harry Potter. So, the letters that had to be written, handwritten, and newspapers that had to be made. All the pieces that needed design. I was like, have a look. That this graphic design industry is so massive. Like, experiment, search out areas where you can have, because you every so often you meet that person and you say, well, what do you do? And they're like, I do this thing for like Red Bull. And you're like, well, what? I never, how do you know about that? I never saw that come up in the job adverts, but it's
so true.
Searching these things out. And I suppose relationships is quite an important part to that, because finding out, other people who work in these industries that you can say, then get along and go, oh, can I come and see that thing you do? A film producer or someone does the video, and coming on set and seeing where, they do all these things. And so just thinking beyond the general graphic designer, because I just thought, I was going to be a local graphic designer just doing, the village fete or whatever it may be.
I love that.
And actually, there's just such a huge amount of work. TV programs, especially like a police one, take a crime drama, all the screens have to be, with the photos of the people and their names and stuff. That all has to be designed. The badges have to be designed.
That's good advice, and to see what interests you the most.
Yeah.
Like you said the other week, you're like, it's village fates, and people being like, oh, see these certificates, or like we all did the local restaurants and bars and that kind of stuff. And you're right, it's so much broader.
Yeah.
Nice. Lisa, have you got a few?
I've got kind of like what we've all been saying, that know that your weirdness is going to actually work for you. For my whole life as a kid and youngster, I always used to feel like a little bit of weirdo because I was fairly
just
sensitive.
Back then.
Well, okay, I still feel like a weirdo.
And I mean that in the best way.
No, I know you do.
Because I think, my God, your imagination now, what must you have been like as a kid? Because I feel like everyone's imagination's even more as a kid.
I know my days, like the way I see the world is so different to most people. And there was a time, when you're a kid, you don't realize that being different and seeing things differently and thinking differently is a bad thing. But, it kind of like does that dip where people start calling you names because you behave differently or you speak differently. And it's a rough thing to go through. And I just wish I could tell myself back then, people might be like ripping you off now and really ragging you about being different, but that's actually going to be in your favor when you're much older. So
I think how you see the world is one of the most wonderful things I've ever witnessed.
Oh, thanks, Tom. But then I just wish you were around when I was a kid, because where were you?
I imagine the four of us being friends as kids.
Yeah, definitely.
How sweet would that be?
Oh, for sure. So there's that. And that whole thing of you're not always right. I'm quite a headstrong person, so I always think I'm right. So that's a hard lesson to learn. That you're absolutely adamant that I'm right, and I know that there's been times where obviously I'm not right. So it's about eating that humble pie, and especially when it comes to clients and things like that, you just always assume that they made a mistake, and actually you made the mistake. Things like that. And the last one would be live below your means, because you don't always for a lot of reasons why that's a good idea. You don't always know if the income's going to be like a steady flow if you're a freelancer. And at the same time, if you kind of get into that habit as early as possible, you can really save money that way, and then kind of, do the things you want to do later on in life. I wish I had done that
Smart.
much earlier.
That's good advice. I think that might need to be it for today, but I feel like that's a bombshell.
I want Tom, you had said something I wanted to mention something about real quick. You had said lean into your true self.
Yeah.
And I just thought as soon as you said that, you might as well do it, because haven't you guys noticed that everyone ends up doing it anyways? Like, if you don't lean into your true self, you're just going to waste time, because inevitably you just end up being your true self.
Yep.
I don't want to sound
Yes.
crass here, but it's like if people are perhaps in the closet with their sexuality. And
Yes.
what's the alternative? Your whole life, you're like, I'm definitely straight. I'm definitely not gay.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to happen eventually. Like,
Exactly.
And I've had friends who came out super young, and eventually I would say were happier because of that. And I've had friends who've come out way later and actually wished it was earlier, because they held so much tension and anxiety.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, why would you want to put yourself in the closet of being someone that you're not?
Whatever the
in
thing
any
is,
regard.
you can't keep it up forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Embrace your weirdness. Embrace your everythingness.
There's a quote from
Uniqueness,
a guy I met at Create South called Brian Manley, and he does a
Cool,
talk.
what a name.
You can
Has
listen
he
to
got
his.
cool name.
a giant beard, and is he like massive?
Yeah, he is.
He is.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
My name's Brian
and you-
Manley.
And you can find his talk on YouTube, TEDx, and it's called How to Sell Out the Right Way. And in it, he talks about let your weakness become your uniqueness. And he does
Ooh,
a story. I'll probably get the details wrong, but I think it was like the basis of Metallica or something. One of those bands lost some of his fingers in an accident. But then he learned how to play the bass using a different way, and that became the unique sound of that band.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that. Wow.
He gave me this
It's like-
coffee cup. He gave me this coffee cup, Brian Manley. How did I get? No, he gave me a sticker. I'm sorry, I didn't get the coffee cup. And the sticker says, "I like my coffee how I like my metal, black."
but you know, it's just that actually the things that you think hold you back, maybe disability, maybe you don't feel that you've got a face for, doing video like we didn't think we did, or your voice or whatever that may be. Actually, some of these things can actually help you. Being average is worse than being a bit different, because you see actually some of the things on YouTube, and actually they're the ones with disabilities have got an advantage because it enables people to remember them. And so find out what it is that maybe is a weakness of yours and actually make it louder, make it so. And
Have you
use
ever
it in
heard
your
anyone say, you have to check out my friend on YouTube? She's so average.
Yeah.
You'd love her.
Never-
She's
never
just
heard that.
incredibly mediocre.
She just fits right in. No one will judge you for watching her. No one's going to say anything about it.
Yeah, she's like everyone else. You must check her out.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, nice. And God, I didn't know that about the Metallica bassist.
I think is that right, Dustin? I don't know.
That's an occupational hazard. Finger loss if you're a bassist.
Yeah, or
it can't get
something
much worse than
happened,
that.
and it meant he had to try a different way to do the bass sound, and it just created their sound. And like the
See, that's a pub quiz one right there. Nice. All right, guys. Well, that is all from us today. But you little scoundrels, younger Tommy and Dustin and Lisa, I hope we gave you some good advice, and I hope for all the younger listeners out there, you got some kind of value from today's episode. And if not, we're sorry. we'll see you
That's
next
the
time.
most honest, best ending ever.
Yeah, completely.
all
Bye from
refunds
us.
from Tom.
Yeah.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye. See ya.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com, or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on the Honest Designers Show.